Hello, everybody. Ricky here for another episode of And Action, brought to you by Slate Click. I am just as excited about music and scores of films as I am about films themselves. If I had more than an ounce of musical ability, I would do exactly what our guest is doing tonight. But I was in sixth grade, played the trumpet, got into the band, got to do the Christmas thing with the trumpet, and that was it for me. No more music. But this guy, our guest, Mr. Pakk Hui, is just an incredible composer. He arranges music for movies. You're gonna see when we bring him on right now. He's got pianos behind him. This guy does it all. Pakk, welcome to the show.
Hi, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
You bet. I'm gonna apologize in advance. It is super allergy season here, so I've got my daughter's diaper bag rag here. So if I sneeze or go nuts during it's a live show, like I've been sneezing all day. So fair warning. Fair warning.
All good.
Yeah. All right. So the first thing we do on every show is we read your bio. It's a little bit of building up your ego and stuff like that. So this is pulled straight from a couple sources.
Okay.
Pakk Hui is a Chinese-American film and TV composer based in Los Angeles. Originally emigrating from Hong Kong, Pakk developed a love for music at an early age. He is foremost a storyteller who enhances each scene and brings every character to life through the use of music to maximize the emotional impact for the audience. His most recent credits include music for blockbuster films Fury 7, Avengers Age of Ultron, and Now You See Me Too. He has also written music for close to 300 TV episodes for the reboots of Hawaii Five-0, MacGyver, and Dallas, as well as Burn Notice, Extant, and Warehouse 13. Pakk's work has appeared on major networks including CBS, Fox, NBC, Syfy, Nickelodeon, and numerous film festivals such as Tribeca, Con, and TIFF, TIFF. Pakk, welcome to the show. You are the man.
Thank you for having me.
That's a crazy, crazy, crazy bio, my friend. That's just it's impressive. It's impressive. And we're going to talk about your music. But there's a meme out there, and it's the Asian dad meme. And it's the when I was if you were 6, when I was 6, when you were 6, I was 7. Like the dad's always trying to better the kid. And the reason I bring that up is because part of your story is that growing up in your house, your parents wanted you to go the doctor route. And for a little while you did. Like it was the traditional cultural, we want our son to be this very successful doctor. You went to college, you went to medical school, and I want you to talk about that for a little bit. What happened? What went down? Did your parents disown you? Did they accept it? Like, I want to know all about it.
No, yeah. Well, we'll just rewind a little bit. I did not go to med school, but I did go to undergrad, but I studied biology and was on track to apply to medical school, but never got that far. Because I being a good Asian boy, you listen to your parents and you follow through what they do. And at one point, I just couldn't follow through with it. My passion for music was kind of pulling me in a different direction, and kind of owe it to myself to give that a try and see what happened. And on that journey, I kind of learned a lot about myself. Like, you really have to, when you're forced to do something, even though like I wasn't bad at it, but I wasn't great either. Like the science classes I loved and all that. But, at one point I was like, I don't think I can do this. So at one point I made the decision to apply to music school. And I said, if I get in, I go. And I figure out how to pay for it.
That's great. So what for me, similarly to you, I took because I'm good with computers and the electronics and stuff. So I wanted to be a filmmaker and an actor and a director, but then I need to pay the bills and I'm getting married and we're gonna have kids. I remember the moment vividly. I'm like, I can't. I have to bet on myself. What was the moment for you? Like, what specifically happened? Where you're like, that's it. I'm done. I'm going. I'm betting on myself.
Yeah, at the time I was in grad school for healthcare management, but that was another route that I took to better my chance of getting into med school at one point. So I was in this health management class, and one of the books we had to read was Who Moved My Cheese? I think it's an organizational training book in a way, kind of to figure out how you look at different situations and what you do in that situation. And the takeaway for me in that after reading that book was, just follow your dream. You gotta chase your cheese, whatever the analogy was. So And from that point, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't wasting the time that I had being young. I could try a couple things. And I didn't want to wake up one day, I'm like, all of a sudden I'm 50 and I'm at a job that I hated and stuff. So, and thinking back that like, I wish I would have tried something that I loved. So that was the motivation.
I'm glad you did, because I'm a firm believer that the world needs more people pursuing their passions and doing what they were born to do. And so with that said, I feel like, I don't know your parents at all, but I feel like they must have known, because I read in Hong Kong when you were 4 or 5, you were at some sort of family party and you just hopped on a piano and started playing. Was that child prodigy playing, or were you just banging keys? Like, talk about that a little bit.
In my head, I was playing amazingly. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. But I was, they had an upright piano sitting in the hallway, and I sat up there and I started playing melodies and harmony and all that, both hands together. And from that moment, I was like, this thing is awesome. I love it. And so that was the first taste of piano as an instrument. But it wasn't until later that I actually took lessons.
Okay. I love it. I love it. That proves to me that you knew what you wanted to do from a very early age, just like I did. So part of your story too is that you told me behind the scenes too. I didn't know this part, but that your dad kind of pushed you into like, hey, watch these films. And you're very early on in life, you're watching American horror, American sci-fi comedies and stuff like that. So talk about that a little bit. Then my question that I wrote before we talked was, were the movies in and of themselves what got you interested in film, or was it the music that you're like, oh my gosh, this is it?
Yeah, so my family, especially my dad, he would just sit and watch movies, like he wasn't necessarily forcing me to, but when he's having the movies on, we just kind of sat down and watch it with him. And it's usually American films. Like, I've seen so many, like as a kid, like I was telling you before, that a lot of them were so inappropriate for a child. Like The Shining, The Exorcist, The Omen, and Close Encounter of the Third Kind, Jaws, all of those. And I just the vivid memories of certain cinematic moments of those movies had always stuck with me. But it wasn't until much later that I drew the connection with the music that went with it. And the one example I would give is The Omen. At the end, I don't know if you've seen the movie, but at the end, the camera pans down and you see the kid, and spoiler alert, and he turns around and he smiles, and then the music creeps in, this chant. That stuck with me. I had no idea, but but the impact was both visual and music at the same time. But I didn't really appreciate it until a lot later.
Sure. So with that said, every show we do, I show someone's first Instagram post and they explain it. Yours is kind of unique because of what you just said. So go ahead and play it, Bex. All right, my friend, tell us about that. What is that film? Walk me through the process of creating the score for that. It's beautiful music. Please don't take offense to this. One of my favorite films is American Beauty, and it sounds very American Beauty to me, and I love that.
Well, thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
Okay.
So Sway was filmed from 2014, I think. That's the one that went to TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival.
Yes.
So that is a film, basically has 3 stories intertwined into one film, and the central theme behind is love, family, and being in the foreign place and being out of sorts somehow, you know, and the first cue that you heard there, so there are 2 cues strung together. I think the first one is, it's called Airport. And it's the idea that you're at an airport and everybody's going in every which way and you are just so lost. And I think each characters have a different level of, you know, being lost in their lives and in their family lives and in their partners. And so that's basically the story. And the score, it took me about a week or so to complete, because I was writing music on a TV show, helping out, doing additional music at the time. So I had 1 week off and I had just that much time to do it. And I crank out that score in that kind of time. So yeah.
So, okay, a lot of what I did to get to where I'm at is editing videos for clients, and I'd go out with my camera and shoot. Then I'd find music on, you know, royaltyfreemusic.com, that kind of thing. And I would sit there and I would edit the video. Then I'd put music in. I'd be like, okay, that sounds right. Oh, that doesn't sound right. Okay, that's better. So, scoring, is it kind of the same thing? Like they've sent you the clip, you know, the 2 people walking in the airport or whatever it is. Do you just sit there at your desk with your keys and you just kind of strum until you find the right thing? Or I am so curious to know that process. How does that work?
I think for me, I need to know the story. Because you can score something so many different ways, and I'm sure you've seen trailers that are recut into from horror films to comedy. Yes. It is all from editing and the music, right? So so I need to know the stories. I need to know the motivation behind each character, and I think ultimately is how do I react to this story and this plot, this moment in this film, and I think you know because you're a filmmaker yourself, you know, you want to feel something when you're finished watching something, right? So it's whatever that is, that's what I'm trying to capture.
Yeah. Amazing.
You know,
and you do it very well. So
thank you.
You're welcome. So I just rattled off, you know, the films and TV shows that you've worked on off the top of my head without looking at the notes. It was Furious 7, Avengers: Age of Ultron, Hawaii Five-0, Magnum PI. So you're there. Like, okay, Pakk has made it, right? But a lot of people watching this show are trying to get there. So I would love for you to talk about the ability to stick with it, first of all, and then talk about some of your misses. Like, sometimes I'm sure you got invited to work on a project and you're like, you know, that wasn't my best work, but you stuck with it and you kept going. And I want to talk a little bit about the art of tenacity.
Yeah, because so many times I mean, there was one major time that I was going to give up because it was just, I couldn't do this. But I didn't. And I think the main thing for me is that I cannot picture myself doing anything else. And a lot of the credits that you've mentioned, I do additional music on those projects, and that's kind of a stepping stone for me to get to the next point. And also for me, that's a kind of a training ground for my own craft as well, because I get to work with these amazing composers who I work under, and I get to work on projects that are really high quality. And that kind of hooked me for a long time, because I've done additional music for the past 10 years. So that kind of kept me going back to it and not wanting to give up. And every time there's a scene that it's hard or whatever, that I kind of find the challenge, like I want to be challenged by it. And it feels like being like you are being an artist in that way. You kind of have to, you can't kind of do the same thing over and over again. So every time there is a new challenge, I kind of like, I'm up for it.
Yeah, good. And it's so admirable that you stuck with it, because this is not easy. There's no roadmap to become a director. There's no roadmap to become a film score person, a grip, anything at all. But I'm curious, who is on your Mount Rushmore of musical score people?
There's so many, but I will say the obvious John Williams. That
yes,
he's,
of course.
He's the because he was one of the ones that the music kind of stuck with me at the beginning when I was younger, like E.T. and Star Wars, obviously. Another one is Jerry Goldsmith, 𝐻𝐸 Hisaishi, the Japanese composer who did a lot of the Miyazaki animations.
Oh, okay.
He writes beautiful melodies, very kind of jazzy. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And another one, I would say Harry Gregson Williams is another one I really like. There's so many others. Those are the four that I think of right now.
If you were in a cafeteria and like all the cool composers were sitting at a table and I walked up and I said, "Hey guys, my favorite is Hans Zimmer," would you guys laugh and say go wherever, because everybody loves Hans Zimmer? Or is he still somebody that, like, because for me, it doesn't get any better than Hans Zimmer. Even if I don't like the film's premise, I'll go watch it if I know he did the score.
Yeah, I mean, he's awesome.
Yeah.
He's the man. He's defined the superhero action genre, right? It's just every time he has a new score, I usually buy the soundtrack before I watch the movie.
There you go.
Like you. He's awesome.
I was able to go to, he did a live concert series in 2017, and I went to one. It was in Berkeley, California. And oh my, no, that one was in San Francisco. Sorry, he did another one in Berkeley a month later. That was one of the funnest concerts I've ever been to. And there's not concerts usually have like no chairs and like people are moshing and stuff like that. But this concert almost was like a formal dinner. Like there was so many people just sitting down, and like I imagined in my head they were smoking peace pipes. But it was a lot of fun because music, for me, I talked about at the beginning of the show, it's transformative. It's as transformative as the visuals, in my opinion. And so when you're at the top of your game like you are, and I just watched that silly little minute clip of yours right now, I'm like, man, that's emotional. Like you hit the nail on the head. So what is the difference between composing and then musical arrangements, which is also some of your credits? What's the difference?
So there's the composer who writes the themes, and he's the main guy, he's the go-to. And there's score arrangements and additional music. Those are the kind of, what we do is we take the themes that they've written and then we apply it to the scenes. And sometimes connecting two themes together and kind of making it work for that particular scene. So in a way, we kind of, let's face it, like it's very there's a time crunch with everything that we do in this business, right? So one person cannot possibly sit down and do it all. So everybody has a team, and as the team, we kind of like, tackle this scene and somebody else tackles that scene, so that it all gets done and it's all cohesive. It's all makes sense.
So are you merely, I'll use that word, merely just taking already completed music and merging it, or are you writing some things sometimes that's going to merge the two?
Yeah, both actually. Okay. Yeah. So there are times where for whatever scene you're working on, I use this one theme here, I used another theme here, but in between, I kind of have to glue it together in a way that makes sense. So that's what I would do. I would go in and write that to connect it. And so there's orchestration involved, not necessarily putting it on paper, but we have to think about instrumentation. We have to think about how is this theme, because you also don't want to hear the same theme over and over again in the 2.5 movie, right? Yep. So you want to make sure that it's different enough, and maybe there's a character arc, there's a character development that will transform this theme to something else. So then we would also do something like that to either flip the theme upside down or whatever it is, to make it different.
Are you working with the director at that point, or the composer? Or do they just say, "All right, Pakk, run"?
We work with the composers mostly, and it's not a whole lot of time. So you get you get the files and you just like, here, these are the themes that the composer have written, and then you hear the scenes that you are going to work on and go.
Wow. So it's like you said a minute ago, in film, everything they needed yesterday. So I'm assuming that's the thing too. That it's not like they say, here, have it once, you know, take
right. And also there's picture change sometimes, so you got to deal with that. And so it's basically keeping it's a supporting role for the main composer, and a lot of times that's what when I was talking about earlier, it's kind of like a training ground for a lot of us, and that's exactly what it is, because you work with some of the best people in the business, and they you know, when I hand in a cue, they would come back and say, hey, this here, it doesn't work, try doing this. Or he'll hand it in, and director would have notes, and he would tell us and let us know what we need to do. So in a way, it's like you get he or she would filter through what the director said and kind of making it into musical solutions, and let us know how we can make it better and have a better chance of getting approved.
And I would imagine, like, when a director or a composer is like, I like what Pakk does, they're like, yep, come with me to this other project. It's just like anything else. Like, they want to bring people they work with, and it probably, you know, you probably worked with people that maybe the stuff you did make they didn't love, but then the other guys are like, man, I love this. Come with me over here. Because looking at your credits, you're on quite a few things that are impressive. So okay, with film as a director, and then, you know, I'm an actor's director. I'm not I firmly believe there are two types of directors. There's a widget and like camera lens director like Christopher Nolan, and then there's like a Steven Spielberg that kind of straddles both. But then you have a Terrence Malick that's all about the actors, could not care less if it was an iPhone. So with that said, like, there's always changing technology in filmmaking with lenses and 4K, and now we're 8K, and this camera does this and whatever, but music really doesn't change. We're not inventing new instruments and things like that. So my question is, how do you stay innovative? How do you stay fresh? What do you do to keep yourself at the top of the game so that you're just not sounding like you did 7 years ago?
Well, surprisingly, there's a lot of technology involved with it too. It's not just orchestra, and these days with you know, like, everything is in the box, and you can really do a lot within your computer. And I think probably the Stranger Things score kind of changed the landscape a little bit with a very synthy type sound palette. I think that kind of, you know, allowed other composers to explore that sound. So when something like that becomes trendy, it all becomes part of the you know, the coloring, the crayons, right? So you get to paint with different colors. So yeah, like, there's trends that you want to follow, and certain trends may not be as good. Certain trends don't last very long. But for now, I think this particular sound is still pretty fresh, I would say. And there are plenty of scores out there that are in that vein, or a hybrid of the two. So
the one that sticks out to me the most is 11 years ago when Inception came out and the trailer came out, that bwong sound. It seemed like every freaking movie for the next 8 years had that in there, and thankfully it's gone now. But you're right, like, there's just some trends that they stick for a while, and that. So are there any film scores from any movie that you can listen to on repeat and never get tired of? Like, what would those be for you?
There are a lot. For me, I don't know. I think the more timeless ones for me are the completely orchestral ones. John Williams. Because John Williams is being one. And also there's certain ones from Jerry Goldsmith that I find just very cinematic. Like Basic Instinct is one that I actually really like. The John Williams, E.T. is one of my favorites. I also love the Harry Potter scores. And Spirited Away by Joe Hisaishi is another one that's really just a lovely score.
We were talking about your upbringing earlier, and I alluded to it, and I said I'll get to it later. So now I am going to get to it. So you and I are unfortunately in the same horrible club, which is one of our parents passed away before we were able to truly realize our dreams. This director, how do I point? I'm like a weather guy. I don't know which way to point. That director's chair that has my name on it, my mom bought me 11 years ago because she knew that I was going to, keep going and keep going and keep going. So when I directed my first film at the end of 2018, I brought that chair onto my set and I took a picture of it. And I was like, my mom saw in me something that I was just going after, but she believed me. So talk to me about your parents. I know, because I read your mom eventually came around and is so supportive of your music. And then if anything about just how you think your dad would feel about you right now.
I think he would have been still kind of confused. Like,
really?
what is it exactly you do? Like, I think a lot of Asian parents are kind of like that. Like, they're very critical, but in a loving way.
Okay.
And I think he would be proud, but I think he would still kind of question, like, what exactly you do? Yeah, but he didn't even know that I actually went into music. So at the time when he passed, I was still in college and I was on the pre-med route, biology major. So so much he doesn't know.
Right.
But I hope he'd be proud of me. Yeah,
absolutely. I can't imagine. I'm not allowed to say it because I'm not Asian, but even with the Asian dad meme, I'm still thinking he would be proud of you because you've just reached the height of things. So we have about a minute left. Pakk, talk to the audience who's watching right now that is like, maybe film scoring's for me. Maybe this whole music thing is something. What would you say to them? How would they get started? And just tell them, really, like, stick with it. Like, what advice would you give them?
I think listening is a great place to start. Listening to a lot of scores, listening to a lot of music, watch a lot of movies. If you really love it, I think, going for it is not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we get told, like, you better be practical. I mean, yeah, there's a place for that, but at the same time, at least try it. That would be my advice.
Okay. What film of yours or project even that you've worked on would you want somebody to, once the show ends in 30 seconds, to go watch? Which one do you want them to go see?
There is a short film which is available on YouTube right now called Circuit. So if you type in Circuit short film on YouTube, you'll be able to find it. And it's a short film. It's a heavy subject matter. I wrote the score and it's directed by I forget, I'm blanking on the name.
That's okay. Not your job to remember.
𝐅𝐮𝐫𝐽𝐞.
There you go.
And he's a great director, and go watch it.
As long as it wasn't Army Hammer, we're all good.
No.
Yeah.
That was I was gonna say. I was like, that's not right.
Yeah, that's not right. Pakk, you are awesome. Thank you for being on the show. I've really enjoyed it. Very informative. I wish you all the best. In fact, films I'm working on, I'd love to talk to you about them down the road, my friend. Thank you.
Give me a call.
All right.
All right. Take care.